Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to continue on. I talked about doing building shader materials, and I showed how to do that in a video a couple of months ago. In a couple of days, actually yesterday, I uploaded a video how to make a custom texture, because I was told that if you try to use the buildings array default from Giants, and you want to basically just upload it to their mod site, they won't approve it, it'll automatically fail it. What I can understand, there's so many layers on that, which I could see that I think that's the reason. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to explain the building shader a little better. I'm no expert in this by any means, and huge thanks to you guys over at Farm Wars Modding on the website I'm part of. ShyWizard was a big help in figuring out how these custom textures work, and then I've worked with Maverick and NC Raiders a little bit too. But as you can see, this is just a boring BGA wall I exported from one of the maps. I can't remember what it was, but kind of messed around, made my own wall. I'm no model expert by any means, but this is basically what I was able to do. So that's the second example I want to use. Actually, I want to show something else kind of cool. So this guy here, I just basically brought it in. I made a model in Blender, kind of added a little detail to it, and basically took a custom texture I made. Like I said, I showed that in the video I did yesterday. But then I was able to add, so there's a custom texture 1 and a custom texture 2. Now by default it's like moss and dirt, but what I did is I did something a little different with it. I used some different textures. So as you can see, it might be a little hard on the monitor, but you can see these little splats up here. That is, I think, the custom texture 2 I did. And everything around the edges and the corners here I did custom texture 1, which I believe, like I said, I think the 1 is usually dirt, the second one is moss. So obviously there's some different layers, and I haven't messed with, I don't think there's any settings down. I didn't think so, there's no settings there, but basically, and then you can also, and I forgot to mess with this yet, but I can show that a little later when I show the example how I did this. So you have, once again, the custom texture. The first custom texture is actually 0. That is the map you have to draw and then make basically it looks like a specular image. So that's where it's pulling the brightness basically. So the whiter on the image, the whiter part of an image is going to be more detail. It's going to show up more on the model, and everything dark is basically not going to show up. It's basically like dirt, like on a vehicle. How dirt, the whiter it is, the dirtier it is. The darker it is, the less dirt. So basically your custom texture 1 is where it's pulling that color. So I could actually come into here and I could pick something completely different if I wanted to. I could actually go maps, textures. We could just go shared. So here's where I think it normally pulls in. It usually pulls dirt diffuse right there, which I think I pulled back to, so it didn't really do much. But if I come into here and just to make something like an extreme example, if I pick this map dirt here, it looks more like a rust. And I close it out. As you can see, everything I painted on that first texture it looks really rusty right now. Now on concrete, obviously that doesn't look so good, but it just gives you an idea the extreme what you can do with it. If we get out of here and we go, say we want to make it look alien looking, like some slime on it, I could just go to any kind of specular image actually and pull that in. And the same thing, you're going to get that same effect that you can see. It's basically going to act like a diffuse, because actually it is a diffuse, but it's going to treat that specular like a diffuse. Same thing if I go egg diffuse, it's just going to pull that egg color in. So I mean, you could go in, you could make your own image, or you could just go in here and just start playing around. I said I think I started in maps. Like I said, even if you just take a wheat bottom, it's going to take it and it's going to make it look like it's got some larva on there. But that just gives you an idea, like I said. So basically you have texture 1, which is for, like I said, and I'll show you how to make the texture 1, texture 2, the first layer. And then you have texture 2 is actually your normal for texture 1. So you could actually go in and change the normal if you want. You could change it to wire normal and give it a really odd look as well. If you really zoom in, you can now see some lines in there. And then we go to texture 3. That's basically your second texture you painted into. I know it's confusing, 1, 2, 3, 4, but basically 1 is your diffuse, 2 is your normal, 3 is your second texture. So we could do the same thing. We could come in, let's go view extra large so we kind of see what we're looking at here. So we could just pick well, matte moss is default. That's what you're seeing now on there. And I think that's any spots I have, like the splats right here. But if I come in and I change that to this matte dirt here, as you can see, you'll get those effects. It almost looks like there's rust on there. So you can use it to do whatever you want with it. You don't have to make it a moss or a dirt. You can basically add whatever you want. And I said I think there's some stuff on the sides here. So what we can do is, let me scroll out a little bit here. We'll pick, go to something extreme here, so it'll really show up. As you can see, there's all the second texture I painted in. So everything has the blotchy blue, so it just gives you an idea to see a little better. So if I want to come in, I want to pick, like I said, I could come out, I'll actually go to data, maps, textures, terrain. I think there's like animal mud, so we could pick this right here, pull out, and it's just going to make just a different color on there, as you can see, not as extreme as the blue. And the same thing, you can come into your normal map, and you can say, you know what, I want to add a crazy looking normal here, so we can take class normal. It would just make it look really odd. So you just kind of make it your own. But so that's the first example. It basically just shows you how it's pulling in. Like I said, I didn't know when I was doing a video what these even did. So like I said, you basically have to have your custom specular, and this is your first texture. Your first texture is normal, your second texture, and then there's your second texture is normal. And then if you want to do color, I don't have a color on here right now, but if you were to go color mask, basically, as you can see, I just turned everything white. Well, what I do is I can come down here. Your fifth custom texture is your color. So by default, it just basically kind of whites things out. And these gradients, I'm still working on that. I apologize. I'm a little torn on what they're trying to do there, but basically it's maps, textures, shared, and here's all the different gradients they use in game. So if you go to 2, as you can see, it turns basically the whole model kind of yellowish. And there's tricks around this, and that's all I'm going to show you. I did something with a vehicle shader where you can do the same thing. You basically have individual materials on this, so not everything would be yellow if you wanted it, to be a different color. Basically, like if you wanted the bottom to stay red and this to be white, you could do that. But like I said, that's just a custom in-game gradients they have. As you can see, it's more or less kind of a shading. If I wanted to actually make one, they're actually a 2x16, which is odd. And they're shading them somehow. I don't even know how they're saving them, because when you open the same file and save it back through and open it, it actually changes it. So, and actually, you only need, like I said, it's a 2x16, but you can get away with a 1x1. But let's just do like a 16x16. Let's do a fill bucket, and we'll just pick like a greenish color, fill it. We're just going to go File, Save As. We're in the, so we're just going to call it Color Lime Green, and then we're going to do a DDS Save, DTX1, Generate Bitmap, which I don't even know if it has to be bitmap on this, but if we bring that back up again, change our custom color, go up, and I am desktop, PGA wall, here's my color lime green. As you can see, the whole entire model turns that green. Like I said, if you had different materials, you could limit that to specific faces if you wanted. Something else is cool, I'll show you. Like I said, I was talking about doing another material. I did a dual material on this model here. So what I did is the entire model is building material, is what I call it. But then this top here, if we select that model, the object, if you click on material here, you have vehicle and you have building. So what I did is I did a color mask on this top part, so I can go into vehicle here, scroll on down, and I can it's on 0. So if I change any of these numbers, only the top's going to change. And I can change it to say like chrome, so you could have a red chrome. I think 32 is like a gold. I'm trying to remember, John Deere's like 0.721. So there's a yellow gold. I mean, you could, like I said, you can play with this whatever way you want. And every time you click back on it, goes by default back to first material, so you have to go back again. But I think leather is like 13, so you could give it kind of a rough orange peel look. I had the I had these brands open so you could actually, if you want to get crazy, get orange. So there's cream or orange. So if you just copy these numbers in, Control C. Color material 0, so point, Control V, go to the second number. We're at so 5, Control C, go back here, point, Control V, and then we're 0, so it should already be set. Yeah, so 0. So you can see there it actually looks kind of like an orange because it has the leather look. I think 12 is a different style leather. You have to really zoom in. It's hard to see on camera, especially streaming, I'm sure, but I think 5 is rubber. So you have all kinds of different options there. And once again, here's the material. I've got a list on my Udemy video, but here's the list I got right off of Giants Developer Network. If anyone knows how to do that, just go to Giants Developer Network, and there's actually it's got a PDF. So I mean, you could even do perforated synthetic, which is 26. So I like messing with this stuff just to get some different materials, just to see what you can do with it. So this could literally look like carpet, I guess. It could look like a rubber padding setting on top of that. I mean, that could be an altar or a wall, whatever. Like I said, I just basically designed this just for this video. But anyway, that's just the things you can do with that, and I'll show you now how I pulled it in, how I used that. I showed last video how to make that custom texture. So this is basically what I did for this wall. Here's the diffuse. I just used a brick. So there's a concrete, and I think this one's like a metal. It's got a crazy looking specular, and then this is just another style concrete. I wanted to use 4 grids. And there's a spec file as well, and a normal. And I did comment on that video I did showing how to make these. ShyWizard actually had a better idea than what I was doing. I was basically pasting them all into these individual locations. What he was actually doing is he was starting out with a 1024 by 1024, and then when he would literally copy, say I grab this, oops, I had copied that in. I'm not going to do this perfect because I showed that in the other video. So he'd paste in that first diffuse like so, but then he would go image, canvas size, and then we would keep it up top, but then we go 2048, hit enter, so basically that brings in a white spot down here. So then I could come up and I could go, okay, I'm going to grab this second section now. So I'm going to hit Control C, and I'm going to actually go edit, paste into new image. Image resize, that way it comes in correct, because I show how to do this correct the other. I just try to do this real quick just to kind of show you how he was showing someone else how to do it in another video, and then basically go edit, paste into new layer. But then what's cool is you can come into here, you go Control A for all, you go effects, and there's a object, align object. It's another plugin. I'd have to look. I'll see if I can post a link to it, but if you Google align object paint.net, you can do that much work. Basically hit align object, and you just go to the bottom like that. So then bam, you have your second, and then you go down to what, 3000 whatever, then 4096. That's just basically showing you how he showed someone else. I watched the video he made for someone else on how to do it. It was a little quicker than how I did it, but anyhow, we'll get out of that, because if you really want to know how to do that, you'd watch that video, right? So basically, Blender, here's the object I had. In fact, I'll go ahead and close this out and open Blender back up. File. Let's go open. I think I'm with like 2 if I remember right. I think this is before I changed all of. So your basics, you're going to start out. Oh, it's going to be a. Basically, it's going to be a small square like that when you first start out. In fact, I don't want to go back to my original because I have to redo all the UVs. We're going to leave these UVs alone. But basically, what I would suggest is take your diffuse, actually open your diffuse up in your UV. So I've got mine under BGA wall, and here is the diffuse. So what that's going to do is going to get your UVs set up, because once you do an unwrap and then go into 1x4, it kind of skews your UVs a little bit. So what you want to do here is make sure you have for your UV map number 1, which as you can see I have that all messed up because I was messing around, so we're actually going to get rid of that UV map. So once I got my UV set, this is how I had them set up, so they're somewhat, they're not seamless, but they're up against other edges, so it looks better in, when you start to mess with things. And I think it might actually open up because I had to change some of these around. So let's go ahead and go file, open, discard. We'll bring in that 3 again. Sorry for bouncing around as usual. So what I'll do is I'll go to my UV map 2. So this is where I started out right here. As you can see, I changed these a little bit. So as usual, 1 is going to be, we talked about this in the buildings array video. 1's going to set how you want it to come off these diffuse, and your UV map 2 is going to be picking up your specular that we're gonna paint that I was talking about. So, and like I said, to do that, basically, if you want to add a UV map, all you do is you just come right over here and hit the plus button. Some people had asked about not knowing how to do that, but that's all you have to do is just hit plus. You can add your extra UV maps. We only need 2 right now. So, like I said, the first UV map is going to be picking your diffuse up. Just repeat that. UV map, your second UV map is going to be what it's going to pick up for your specular. So this is the whole reason why buildings array makes you have that secondary map, is because it's looking for your specular file or your texture, custom texture. I keep saying specular because it looks like a specular, but it's actually your customs texture file that you're looking at. So, like I said, that's where, and you can, I showed this before as well, you come in your material, you can actually, we got a tab to get rid of that material, so we can actually go to new material. You can do under base or under surface, you can actually do, emission, and what I do is image texture, and same thing, I can look at the diffuse. So what it's going to do, it's going to broadcast the same thing. I have diffuse selected here as well, and I go to the preview, the viewport shading. So what that's going to do is that's actually going to project whatever's on our UV up to our object. So if I take these end pieces right here and I start moving them around, you can see it start to affect that model up there. So that's just a good way for you to preview, because like I said, if you don't watch it, you might have these guys, and that's what I was talking about. If you go back to UV2 here, see how there's a difference in length and height. That's why I wanted to come back to this one so I didn't have to mess with the UVs. So if I was to scale that one like it is on that other map, as you can see, we come up here, it changed the size of the bricks. So you want to make sure, hit Control Z. I had these kind of set up so it's getting a better size of the brick. And it took a little bit of playing around. Like I said, if you want to take this part here, which is the top, and make it brick as well, then you could just simply move it up here and it would be brick. Like I said, some of this stuff, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you guys already know. So basically, that's how you set up your UV. To get what I was looking at before and showing you as an example video. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to actually paint in your texture 1 and your texture 2. So basically, this is the diffuse UV, so I don't really want it anymore. I want to look at our UV map, our second UV map, because that's where it's looking for those customized textures. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hit the what's called the active render here, because when I paint, it's going to start painting into that UV. So we want to make sure we have that selected, and then we can actually even come back out of here and let's get rid of that material, because we're going to do a new material. And what we're going to do is we're going to do on this base color, we're going to do an image texture, and then we're going to go new, and then we want 1024 wide, and we're going to go times 4 so that we match our type of tile here, and then we're just going to do a black color. And when I hit enter on that, it's going to make it 4096. That keeps you from making typos if you just multiply by 4. And we're just going to make it a black color because we want our black background to be black. Then, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this video texture 1. Hit enter, hit OK. So when I come over to here, we want video texture 1. So when I start painting, it's going to make that video, it's going to be using this image. In fact, while I'm at it, I'm going to add another image as well. We're going to call this video texture 2. We're going to keep this 1024 by 4096 in black. We're going to hit OK. Alright, so now the issue is you got to watch. If you do that at the same time, the material still has that base video texture 2 selected. What I want to do is I want to actually come in and grab texture 1 like so, and then once again 1 here, so we can see it start painting down here. Now to paint, this is a little tricky. Took me a while. First thing I did is I had to look up how to do this, but if you come up to your viewport overlays button, I actually turned off the floor so I could see a little better. I didn't mess with looking to see how to get rid of the red and the green, but that just helps you see a little better is what that does. And you come over to texture paint. Now when you first start this, you're not going to have these brush options. I'm not going to get too much into the brush options because it took me about a day to figure out how the brushes works in Blender. I did finally figure out, if I go up to the settings here, this is where you can mess with your brushes, and I figured out how to add additional. So basically, like if you wanted to add a new brush, you would actually hit the add brush here. We can call this new brush just for the heck of it. Then you go down to textures, and I think you would go to open, and you can look for an actual brush file. I've got some, and there's several that you can download. Once again, just look for Blender brushes. There's my brushes. We'll go into here. We'll just pick 9 here just to see. It's just a goofy look. We'll actually call this, and I forgot to actually, we'll just call this Moon for the heck of it. Or I'll call it new brush. How's that? Like so. So when we come back to our settings up here, we can actually click on this, and you'll have brush, which will just brush. It'll just paint normal. It controls you to get rid of that. And then I have a crack, which is actually looks like messed up my crack one. Nice, messed up my crack. And I've got a slash that does some slashes. So yeah, actually that's where I messed up, is when you are in your texture here, make sure you change. So we come up, okay, we're here. We want to be on crack, so I can fix this. So we're on the crack. What a name, I know. And then once again we're on crack here. I just keep saying it, don't I? And if we go to my Blender brushes, ZBrush, let's see, where's it at? It's icons, there's cracks right there. So that would fix that. So that's basically how you get back to that. But then what I want to do is I want to come back up to setting, and once again I want to select new brush, come down to my texture, and here's where you'd want to make sure you go, and that's where I made the new layer, new brush. So if we just go new brush 01 to make sure we don't mess it up, and then we'd open up your image. So say 5, we'll just pick that one, so there's 5. And now when I go back to settings, when I click on new brush, it's going to be our new image, as you can see. That's a little more in depth than I wanted to get, because I was a little confused on how these brushes work. We're just going to do a simple brush on this first layer. So we're video texture 1. On materials, we're video texture 1. That's important. I'm going to come up to our brush tab here, and if you hit F, you can basically move your mouse in and out to change the size of it. There's a couple of things to remember when you're painting. So if you're setting like this, it's just like a spray paint can. So if you're going like this, you got to remember that you're shooting across there. In fact, a lot of times when you do that, it's going to kind of splatter like you see there. So you got to be a little careful on your angles. One thing that's kind of a good idea, like there's a straight on 3, and then I think if you hit 6, you can rotate. 4 rotates the other way. 2 and 8 goes up and down. So it's just whatever you want to mess with. You want to try to make sure you're rotating and going on a straight angle. And black is kind of hard to see. It's probably either better or worse in the video, depending on what's going on there. And you can change your strength over here as well, and if you right click you can do those with this if you want. So you can actually just take it and go like that. And then mixed is the type of brush it is. I've had some issues messing with that, and I'm going to show you stencil here in a little bit if you haven't messed with that. But we'll turn the strength down a little bit here. Hit F. I'm going to bring down my size of the brush. I'm just going to kind of go around the corners, and as I was saying, when I mess with this, it tends to mess things up. That's it exactly. Oh, we're just really light. That's what's going on. So let's bring that strength up a little more. There we go. So we're just going to go around the edges where you'd have kind of like, and that's what Matt or ShyWizard who kind of showing in his video. It's basically just kind of like spots that you kind of have moss, I guess. And I'm kind of doubling up. I mean, you want to kind of watch that, but like I said, this is just basically an overlay, so it's not a huge deal. Like I said, I'm just kind of go around all the edges here. You don't have to be great at it. I'm by no means an artist. It's just kind of adding in a texture. It's not going to look completely white like what we have going on here. Let's see, I almost started to spray off to the side. Guess what I could do too here is let's turn on our shortcut key so you can actually see what buttons I'm hitting if I'm not saying. Alright, so I'm just going to quickly go around here because, like I said, the main thing is playing with the layers, and the actual Giants editor is the fun part of it. And just kind of mess around, nothing spectacular here. Like I said, I might be a little light too. Sometimes you could darken it up if you want. So if you had some areas you wanted to make it a little more intense, all you would do is, like I said, you want white because that's what gives you that layer. So I could bring that strength way up, and you can just bring it straight across. What happens if you go back straight across? It doesn't pick up on the, what is it, mixed? I think I'm on. But if you start clicking there, you can see where it doubles up. So the biggest thing is watching doing that. Like I said, I'm not good at painting, so you can see as I'm painting, everything's coming down here on that UV. And I've even messed with, so if you want to clean this up a little bit, you can actually go in and you can do one or two things. If you flip this, it flips you from white to black. So you could turn your strength way down. You could actually kind of clean this up a little bit if you wanted. There is a darken, so I think you can come back in and kind of darken it. Another cool thing is the smear, so I can come in here and I can kind of smear it around so there's no rough sharp edges, so it doesn't look like it was painted in. Just a thought. There's what's this, clone, smear, and soften. So there's a lot of different things you can mess with. This is fill, so if you're like, man, I got this way too bright, the entire thing is way too bright, you can actually, let's go back and make sure we have the right color picked. Color at, right click. And then go back to brush. So I could say I want to lighten the whole thing up. I would switch to white. And then when I click on it, it's going to lighten the whole thing up a little bit. So that's just another option. So it would make the entire model give a little bit of texture, so you might want to be a little careful of that. If you want to darken it all up, then you would just kind of darken it like that. Anyway, I'm once again no blender or paint expert, just kind of giving you some ideas what you can mess with here. We got to go back to mix and turn my strength back up. Here's a way to sample and change colors and everything else, which, like I said, I just don't know all that stuff right now. So this is kind of a horrible job, and I'm trying to hurry up just to give an example. So then what you want to do is, once you get your first texture done, like I said, this is a horrible job, I apologize, you go Image, Save As, and you want to put it in a folder you can find it. Obviously we're just going to call it Video Texture 1, Save As Image. We're going to come over to our material, we're going to grab Video Texture, oops, the image here, we want Video Texture 2, And then so that we get on the right one down here, video texture 2, so it should be a blank slate. Now we're just going to add some surface dirt or material, whatever you want to call it, whatever you're going to make it, moss, dirt, slime, whatever you want to do. So the cool thing about I found here is watching someone else, and I'll have to link that video because he does some crazy stuff with the stenciling. But if we pick, I think let's go with, I think the splat's a good one for this. But if you scroll down in this top tab, if you scroll down to your texture, there's a splat. So this would really work really good on dirt for a vehicle. But you select the mapping is stencil. Now the cool thing here is you take your right mouse, move that anywhere over the top of that object, and you can basically start painting. So if you hold shift and you move your mouse up and down or left and right, it zooms in and out for you, so you can make it smaller if you want. You can zoom in obviously this way as well, but when you paint over the top of that, all you're going to do is paint over that stencil. So you can see it's a really light splat there. So let's go ahead and turn our strength up a little more. So we'll come over here, and a lot of that's due to this image isn't real bright, so we could actually turn our strength all the way up if we wanted to. Once again, like I said, you can just change that size. You can hit F and take your size of your paint a little higher if you want. But as you can see, you're actually putting some splats on there. Like I said, I need to brighten that texture up a little bit. I'll have to mess with that later, but sometimes get it too extreme, then it looks odd though. Let's go ahead. You can even twist it by hitting Control and left and right. I don't know how to get it back to 0. I think it's actually right here. You can hit 0. I don't know of a keyboard shortcut, so I said Shift is, like I said, the biggest thing is to kind of spread it out, so you could really make it look random by doing this. Makes the entire thing look like it was splatted. Or you zoom it in, come down here, and if you just wanted to go back, there's a view plane, which, turn the radius down, I think just paints that texture over and over, so it looks like it's kind of running. And if we go to tiled, when you come across, it's just going to make a bunch of splats. I said this is going to look horrible in GE, but I just want to show these examples. And there's 3D. I'm not really sure. I think it just kind of distorts it. It looks like it's really messing things up actually. And then, well, we already did stencil and random. I think random just kind of does whatever. So yeah, could just kind of go all over it, and then we'll see what it looks like in the Giants editor. So from that point, same thing, you would want to go Image, Save As. We're going to do Video Texture 2, Save As Image. Now, we had already exported, I guess I didn't really get into that. I already had this model done, so you don't even have to save this. You want to make sure that you had exported your model with your UVs this way. So if you hadn't done that yet, I guess let me show you that quick. Another thing you really want to make sure you do, let's go back to object mode. We'll actually change this to diffuse. We'll go into materials. We already got our images saved, so I'm going to get rid of these materials. I just want to make one material right now. But what I really suggest, we'll go back so we can see a little better, is make sure you use the modifier edge split, which it looks like I forgot to apply. You want to apply that edge split modifier. Once again, make sure you have your 2 UV maps. We have that set. I would click that back. I don't know if that matters, but I would click that back for exporting. But edge split helps on some of these textures. I've had issues where the texture would get really messed up, like the sun would bounce across it 4 times on the top, or anytime there was like a plane. As you can see, for detail reasons, I cut most of the vertices out of this, but if you had this all loop cut, every single loop cut you would see that sun bouncing off of it, a reflection. So I really suggest on something like this using that edge split. But you just basically, you want to save, we're just going to call this, oops, video example. For a blend file, you always want to save before you export. So we're going to go export Giants i3D, video example i3D. We're in the right folder. Going to export, and I'll minimize that. So then once you bring up your i3D, We're going to go on the cube itself. I could have named the material, but I didn't. Not a big deal. Something else you want to watch too, I've been finding, is it's a good idea if you're going to put this in game, switch that to 300. And depending on what it is, if it's just a decal, you don't need both these, but you have a cast shadow map and a receive shadow map. So there's some things you got to look at, and there's also a CPU mesh. If it's on a vehicle, it's going to be rigid. I think you want that as well. I don't usually mess with that. Like I said, a decal you wouldn't need the cast shadow map, but on an object like this, I would definitely do the receive shadow map. So for the albedo, which I still call diffuse because I'm probably hacking that name, we're going to just go to our desktop, and I'm going to select that diffuse that we were using. We're going to want the gloss. So that's the spec, like so, and then normal map. That's our normal. So now we've got this guy into the game by where we had our UVs laid down on the brick, the concrete, and then this one was like a metal material. Now I got ahead of myself here. We want to go ahead and go to our shader source, which is in your data, which I have a shortcut on my desktop. So it's usually under, if you're Steam, this is how it would be, your main drive, program files, 86, Steam apps. We all know that if you're messing with this probably. But we're going to be data, shaders, and we're going to want the building shader. And then right now I'm going to keep this as none because I'm not going to mess with the color mask on this material, on this specific one. And then what I'll do is I need to make that texture. We drew it, but we didn't make it. So here's where it's going to split a little bit. I apologize for showing you how to do this, but then kind of cheating here. I'm going to do this in Coral Paint Shop Pro. I picked this up for like $50–$60. It was the best $50–$60 I spent. Because for specular images like this, layered images, I can do it. You'll see it's as fast as a couple of clicks with a mouse. You can do it with Paint.net, and that's why I'm going to link the video to ShyWizard, because he shows how to do this in Paint.net. To me, it's great you can do that, and it's free. But if you have to go back and change things, if you don't have that original file saved, you're going to lose that whole time you spent doing that. You're going to have to go back and change all the layers. What's nice about doing it this way is I can simply pull this into Coral Paint Shop, and you can do this with Photoshop as well, I believe. And I actually learned how to use this through Stevie in 2017. I did a paint color video where it shows the difference between Paint.net and using Paint Shop Pro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this video texture one. And this, like I said, the nice thing is I can split this up. I can go image, split channel to RGB. So as soon as I do that, I can actually get rid of that video texture one because I'm not going to need it anymore. So what we have our red, our green, and our blue. So red is going to be our channel 1, which is this image I split, so I'm going to leave it there. Green, ShyWizard and I was talking about this a little bit. I'm going to hit Control A and delete. So I believe you can use this as your AO. So if you had one to make the AO, instead of using, so for example, you're bringing in on your diffuse textures, it has its own specular image to show that brick wall. But if we wanted to say, hey, you know what, I want a specific AO on my object off of this as well, that can work as well. So to show you that, I can actually hit Control-C. I'm horrible with Photoshop or Paint Shop Pro as far as actually using it the right way. I do all my messing around in Paint Shop or Paint.net. That's how bad I am. So if I just paste into new image, so if I just basically, to show this, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to grab this brush. And the problem is I don't have, so I'll show you how you can export your UV as well. So I actually hit Control A, or I'm sorry, A, I'm used to Paint.net. If I go UV and I go export UV layout, this is on the desktop, this, I'm going to call it AO UV, like so. Okay, so actually then if I go AO UV, and I shouldn't even call it AO UV. Control A, Control C, edit, paste into new layer. So now I can kind of see what I'm drawing on. So if I literally take the white layer here, and I take this pencil and I zoom way in, and I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do black because that's going to darken it. I'm just going to, in fact, better yet, we'll just do this. We'll go A O test, like so, and we can get rid of that layer. We can go Control A, Control C, go back into here into the green, Control V, and in blue we're going to want our video texture 2, so I can hit Control A, Control C, Control V to put it into the blue. And I could probably, when I go to make this, I could make the blue channel come off of that. I haven't messed with that yet. It's just a little goofy when you start to combine these again, but like I said, as simply as having our 3 layers, our red, our green, and our blue, I can just go Image, Combine Channel from RGB, and this is where you can actually pick your sources. So if you had more than one blue or one green, you could mess with that if you wanted to. And I never mess with this, but I just hit OK, and doesn't that look familiar? Looks like a specular, correct? So we're just going to hit File, Save As, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to go DDS. So this is going to be video example textures. Hit save. We want to go DTX1, generate bitmap, hit save. It takes a little while for that program to save because there's a lot going on there. So now when I come in back into our i3D, that should be our same object. Now when I come to that custom texture I was showing you earlier in a video, I just want to go to the desktop. Oop, I didn't want to do that. I don't know what I just did. Desktop, and we're going to go VGA wall. So there's our video example textures. So when I bring that in, we should see some changes happen down here. There's all our painting. Like I said, it looks kind of horrid. And by default, basically, and there's what I was talking about. There's our AO test that went across this wall. The cool thing is, if you turn the light on, this is my theory of it being an AO. See how it kind of disappears? So it's like a shadowing you could draw in, or you could bake your AO. That's another video, which ShyWizard would be a great one for that because he shared to me how to bake an AO. So, like I said, I'm pretty sure that can be used as your AO for your specific object. Just a theory. Because like I said, if I get rid of that, there's just not going to be anything here. If I just make that white, basically. So if I come back in here, go back to that green layer, Control A, delete, image, combine channel from RGB, hit OK, file, save as, go to a DDS like that, and we're going to video example, yes, hit save. Now when I hit refresh, bam, it disappears. So that's just my theory. And I was messing around a little bit. I think I did it in Blender where I could use the better paintbrush just to make some weird looking. So you could actually almost use it as a third texture, but it would just be like a shadow texture, if you want to call it that. So as you can see, here's our different dirt and everything going on. If we click on the cube, I hit custom texture 1, we can switch it from just being your simple dirt diffuse. View list. I think it just uses default map dirt. Should say up there actually if I close this out. And so they're just using map dirt diffuse. So that's what I was talking about. In fact, if we do view large icons, we can kind of see the different colors. So there's a map dirt 2. It's just going to change. And that was the stuff we drew on the sides, if I remember right. So if we change this to ground height, no, that's actually so that must be the second texture. Right, oh yeah, that's right, because 2, so custom texture, I got them backwards actually. Custom texture 1 is actually your blue, so my bad. I was explaining that wrong the whole time. So that's the second texture we did, so I even named them wrong. As you can see, I painted across there. So texture 1 is in the blue channel. Sorry about that. So if I select just a black like so, it's just going to make that dark. So yeah, that's your second texture, so I named them wrong. Sorry about that. So if we go back, like I said, you can do some crazy stuff. I've even taken that guy and thrown it in there just to give it a red tint. It's kind of like an emissive color, I guess you could say. Like I said, there's all kinds of things you can mess with. If you go to a Windows specular, it's going to brighten up, like I said, make it look kind of neon looking. And then Custom 3 would be your first texture that I actually painted. So that would be this here is the blue channel, this will be the red channel. So when I come into here and I change that to that, as you can see everywhere we painted on that first texture. So it's kind of backwards how they do it, but oh well. That's that. Now if we change that back to moss, it'll just look like more natural moss. Even though I have all the other colors on there messing it up, so let's get rid of that. This is what it would be by default if you didn't mess with those image textures down there. But like I said, you can do some pretty cool stuff. You can actually kind of do your color mask that way. And once again, if you wanted to color mask it, you would come back up here, switch to color mask, and like I said, it's all kind of going to go to a gray. And then you could either do the custom color that I was showing or use one of theirs, depending on what you want to do. Desktop, PGA wall, said there's a lime green, or you can do whatever you wanted. So that's the simple way to do it. So if you want to get a little fancier, what you can do here is you can come back into your model. Let's get rid of our material. I got to be in object mode. So we're just going to go back to a basic material. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to select some faces here. In fact, the easiest way to do that, scroll this up. If we're on the sync mode on and go to faces, if I grab this entire section here, in fact, let's go to our first UV map so we don't get messed up. So if I grab this entire section here, and what I can do is I can come up to the materials tab, so I can hit, let's do 4 separate materials just for the heck of it. And I'm not going to show how to do the vehicle one because I've went through the UDIM on the vehicle, so you know you need to put it down here if you're going to do that. But we'll just go new, and we'll call this material 1. And then what we'll do is all these faces we want to assign to material 1. And then we're going to grab these faces, going to hit new, new, material 2. In fact, I probably should name them. Hit assign. So now what happens if I grab one of these faces, like so, it'll switch back to material 1. If I grab one of these faces, like that, it'll go to material 2. So what we'll do is we're going to call this sidewalls underscore material, this map, and then we'll call this top plate material. So we got, and it's gonna go with new material, new, gonna call this top ledge material. And getting these many materials is probably a bad idea. In fact, I should probably keep the concrete the same. So assign, so we got top plate, which was this guy here. Nope, that's a top plate. And we have, we're going to do concrete here. It's a top plate. So we got the sidewalls. That's going to be the, so let's just call this concrete. Probably spelling it wrong because I can't see. I got my cursor covered up. Concrete material, brick material, and then we'll just call this top plate material. So this guy here is going to be part of the concrete material. So we're going to click on him and assign. You just kind of want to click through these and double check them, because if you sign them from down here it can get a little goofy. because it's in your UV section. Like I said, if I come and select faces down here, it doesn't affect up here. I actually have to click up here, and it has to do with your sync here as well. But so yeah, I'm actually screwed up here. Brick wall. So this should be brick here. So brick material assign. Top plate. That's correct. This is going to be shift, select that. That's my concrete material. Assign. So we got concrete, concrete, brick, brick, concrete, top. Okay, cool. So I don't even have to mess with the diffuses. I could actually use separate images or whatever I wanted. But we'll keep everything the way it is now because it's already going to be using the concrete from this image. But you could use a separate image, I guess is what I'm getting at, as well as using your own separate texture as well. Basically, the reason I'm doing this is so I can use different colors, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Long story short, and to show how to use a different material. Like I said, I could actually take the top plate and move it down here to use it as a vehicle shader. That way it'd be color masked if I brought it down here, but we're not going to do that right now. So I'm going to hit File, Save As. We're going to call this video example multi-material. Like so. I'm going to hit Save. I'm going to go File, Export, Giant Size 3D, and video example. Get rid of the blend in there. Enter. So we'll minimize this guy out, get rid of this because we're not going to need that anymore. Let's go ahead, while we're in here, let's go new, 16 by 16. So we could do like a, let's do like a oranges. We're going to go ahead and fill, we're going to go File, Save As, and we'll call it it's got to be a DDS. So this is going to be color orange. It's going to be DTX1 generate bitmap. We could do, let's see, more. Turn this more like a tan or a brownish. Kind of to here. File, save as, tan. And we can come into here, File, Save As, Color Gray, like so. So we're done with this. Don't save. Now we open up our new video example multi-materials. Okay, I want to show you this too, I about forgot. If we just open this guy up and don't make any changes in Notepad, and because I didn't change those materials at all, I just renamed them. You click on this, you're going to have all three concrete material for names, and the problem is when you change one, if I change that to a 1, if I switch to this guy, it's going to be 1. If I switch to this guy, it's going to be 1. So what we got to do is hit no for changes. So what happens is Giant's Editor, if it notices all your materials the same, in fact, if you make all your materials the same in GE, it's going to try to merge them for you. We don't want that. We want 3 separate materials. So I'm going to go right click, edit with Notepad. I'm simply just going to change this diffuse here to 1 to 0.2, and we don't have to mess with that one because it's already different. So basically I'm just changing those a little bit so it keeps our material names. In fact, let's fix my boo-boo there. Going to hit save, close that out, bring down. Now when I open it up, as you can see right off the bat, we have some different colors in the diffuse because I actually changed the diffuses a little bit. So now when I click on cube, I have concrete material, brick material, and top plate material. So if we go to concrete material, we'll just bring open our albedo map here, and we could use different diffuses here. We could play around a little bit. Like I could actually, just for the heck of it, let me close this down. Let's grab, I was messing with Blender material test, was it? So I have these guys. Let's grab him, copy, pull them into here. I don't even know what these are, so we're going to find out real quick. So I could actually go into the concrete and I could pick this. Now the issue is it might not line up. So our concrete is going to be kind of a shiny metal. Well, we'll find out once we get the full shader in. So that was array 1. Array 1. As you can see, it's setting on the wrong grid. It's setting on like shingles, I think it looks like. So it was a bad example to use. We could still use a concrete shader though, or I'm sorry, the building shader. Alright, so yeah, we have a multi-texture we're setting on, so let's get rid of that one. Let's go back to the original. So let's go just diffuse. And it's a cool thing is you can use another normal. I mean, you don't have to use, you can mix things up. That's what's cool about this editing game. There's our spec, and then our normal. So now we're back to just a concrete look, and that's what lines up with the UVs. Like I said, that's the thing. If you want to test something like that, you about have to test your UVs. And if they're different materials, you can put the UVs anywhere. Now, what we're going to do is we can share, since all the UVs laid in the same place for the texture array, basically the custom texture, I should say. We can use that for all these materials. So desktop, PG wall. So this is our video example. So it's going to use that same custom texture 1 and custom texture 2 specular image, basically. And like I said, I'm sorry, I apologize for messing up. So the red is the second texture set, and the blue channel is 1. So, and I should have known that because when ShyWizard and I were talking about, we kept saying moss and dirt. Anyhow, so that's just your first material. That's our concrete. Now if I come up here and I pick brick material, obviously we can use the original for this one, but just for the heck of it, let's see what we have laying on this diffuse under brick. Yeah, look at that, it's actually brick. And I think it's the same brick, honestly. So let's see, I don't know if I have another example or not. I like using brick, I guess. So Blender, material, actually OneDrive, custom arrays. Let's see what we have for, here's a second diffuse, which looks like I'm in love with brick a little bit. So it's brick there. What did I have? View, large icon. So actually it looks like brick is the top layer. So I could actually use these guys. So I could pick these. Let's pull these in. Copy here. Okay. So let's try this. Let's grab diffuse number 2 diffuse. There we go. Now we have like a stone texture. So, and the reason it's so reflective right now is because we don't have a gloss in the normal. So let's go to our specular normal 2, or I'm sorry, specular normal 2. Specular 2, and then we have our normal 2. Oop. Normal 2. So, yeah, cool. Now we have like a brick or a rock wall now. And the same thing, we can come down here. We got to turn on our shader because we are on a different material, of course. So shaders, building shader. And I have to scroll down again. Then I have to select our BGA wall folder, and we want our video example textures. So boom, that brings in, and you can see it looks a little better on them. On this, you can see where I screwed up painting. So then all we have left is our top plate, which is this guy up here. So we can come into Albedo, and let's try something a little different here. I'll use array 1 just to see what's on there. It doesn't look so good. It's brick. It's the array 2. Yeah, Makes it look like a wood bench. That's kind of cool. Let's go with that. Use the array 2 again. So specular and normal. And you can see this is where it's really important that you mess with the UVs, because I did good there, but on the side here it looks kind of goofy. So that's where you have to kind of watch your UVs, and I didn't get to test it because I didn't plan on bringing in as wood, but that's kind of cool anyway, just a different looking texture. So back to Q, we want the top plate, scroll on down, oops, shader, scroll up to my previous folders, building shader, and then we can scroll on down and we're going to pick our custom texture, PGA wall, and videos and for textures. There we go. So that gives a little bit of dirt look to it. So once again, if we wanted to make something specific, the nice thing is, because we're on that material, I can actually come in and change our blue channel to the rusty looking color if I wanted to. And it's not going to show up as much on the wood like that, so that's kind of a different look. And then we could make our moss, which is the red channel. We could change it to, let's see what happens. I'll do like a green. So that just makes it like a bright. It actually works pretty good for this guy. So it really looks like a really bright moss. It's a little extreme. Let's try something like, let's go back up to data, maps, textures. It's natural. It's all look different. Almost looks like there's some, yeah, it's too, yeah, it doesn't work so good. Looked like a good idea. Textures, terrain. You can just kind of scroll through here and just find something interesting. Plate damage. So that's something different. Just makes it look odd. Then if I wanted to switch this to color mask, that's where we grab the color mask. And now this is a cool thing, is when I change, as you can see, it didn't change everything else, it only changed this wood. So it went to an odd looking color, of course, but if we scroll on down, we can pick, now we could pick one of the in-game colors, but it means I mess with making my own desktop, PGA wall. So let's go with like a gray color, and it's not going to change it much because it was already gray. Let's try a little lime green on this guy. So we go back to our green look, or we can just go tan. So there we go. That doesn't look too bad. Just kind of gives it a tan look, but you can see it only affected that top part, top plate, which now looks like wood. So we could actually go back into here, come back up. We're on our concrete material. So let's scroll on down. Let's see what we can mess with on concrete. So on the dirt, well, let's see. Let's just do map dirt 2. See what it looks like on the concrete. Didn't really do much. The concrete itself. Have to go with that rust color. It kind of gives it some different look. And that should be affecting this guy as well. And let's go to the moss, which was the first texture we painted. Let's just go to the map dirt. Choose 2 early on that because that's extreme. So you can see where it kind of picks up a little more. It looks a little odd on the concrete though, so that's a little extreme. Let's do the same thing. Let's go data, maps, textures, terrain, and just go with this. That's kind of a different look. And once again, we can leave that alone, or we could come in, switch that to color mask, which is not really going to change much because it's concrete until we actually pick a color. So we could actually pick PGA wall. Let's check it out with gray just to see what it does. There, it just kind of darkened it up. That's kind of a cool look. I wonder what happens. So it almost looks more like a marble. Come in and go orange, just for the heck of it. It's like we have the burning wall. That's different. And I'm wasting a lot of time right now messing with this, but it just goes to show it's only affecting the concrete area, I guess. And last but not least, we'll go back to the brick material, which is actually stone now. And we can go to our first texture, switch that from dirt, which is the blue channel, to this rusty look we wanted. It's a little different looking. And our moss, I can just darken it up instead of using the moss. Not really much on this guy because I was going around the corners. It would be down here on the bottom, I guess, to show the extreme of it. Let's do this just to see where it affects it. Yeah, so right there you can see some. You can see where I missed. Okay, so once again, there's no color on that. So if we want to go color mask, it's going to grade out a little bit. And we can come down to the custom 5, click on that, and PGA wall. We can make that orange just to see what it'll do. Looks ridiculous, but you guys get the point. I would hope after 3 materials now anyway. But it just separates it out. You can do a little more with things. Make it tan if you wanted, which looks fakish, but if you hit Control L, it'll give this, by hitting Control L and bringing the light in, it gives you a really good idea what it's going to look like in game. So sometimes it'll look completely different in Giant's editor. Control F will bring the light, whoops, Control F will bring the light from where you're standing as well. So as you can see, you got to watch what you do because you'll make it look really goofy if you don't watch it. So that's why the concrete looks a little ridiculous in the lime green like that. Oops. Which is not him. Oops. I keep forgetting to have the color in there. That's why I keep hitting the wrong one. Oh, that's what it is. It's the color is so bad. There we go. So you can see where I really messed up my painting on there now. So yeah, as a recap, like I said, your red channel is your second texture, and your blue channel is your first texture. Why they would flip that around, I do not know, but I think that covers it. Sorry if I got a little long-winded. The last probably 20 minutes was pointless, but now you get an idea how that works, how you can make your own. And like I said, it's kind of cool though. There, it looks kind of like a clay rock. But we'll end this video on that note. We went a little over, but hopefully this helps you guys out. Maybe you already knew it, maybe not. Hope I didn't waste your time. We'll catch you next time.